Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today we are taking a look at, well, I'd say cracking open the world of Bob Camblin,
Oh, yeah.
an artist who may not be a household name for everybody,
Right.
but once you encounter his work, I think it's safe to say it really gets under your skin.
It does.
So we're talking drawings, paintings, a style that's all about symbolism, personal mythology, and I'd say a little bit, a sprinkle of social commentary too.
Yeah, Camblin, he is really a bit of an enigma, which is probably why he's so fascinating to so many people.
For sure.
His life and his art, they're so intertwined that it's hard to even separate the two.
Totally. Yeah, and today we've got a real mix of sources to try to, I don't know, unravel it all, I guess.
Right.
We've got excerpts from books that feature his art and quotes. There's even a YouTube video out there analyzing one of his most famous paintings, and then of course we have a good biographical overview.
Right.
So it's almost like we're piecing together a puzzle today,
It is.
and each one of these sources is like a clue.
Absolutely. And speaking of puzzles, I mean, Camblin's work, that's a puzzle in itself. It really is.
Yeah.
He was born in Oklahoma in 1928. So think about this. He grew up surrounded by the grandeur and I guess the eventual decline of the Marland estate.
So wait, okay, paint a picture for us here. The opulence of this massive estate with its European-trained craftsmen and all this imported art, and then it's all happening like against the backdrop of the Dust Bowl,
Yeah.
like economic hardship everywhere you look.
Yeah, I mean, that contrast,
Right.
that tension, that interplay between the grand and the gritty, it really does seem to have seeped into Camblin's artistic DNA from the very beginning.
That's so interesting.
It is.
And it makes me think about something else, something you mentioned before we started recording, another early influence that I bet would surprise a lot of listeners, The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Huge impression on him as a kid.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Wow.
It made a huge impression on you.
Huh. Now that you mention it, there is something a bit Oz-like about his art. It often feels like you're stepping into another reality full of strange creatures and hidden meanings.
Right.
Do you think that childhood fascination with fantasy worlds, those kinds of worlds, played a role in his artistic development?
Oh, I think it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Those early experiences, they can leave a lasting mark on our imagination.
Oh, sure.
And I think in Camblin's case, it seems like that sense of wonder, that fascination with the unknown, it really stayed with him his whole life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got these early influences kind of swirling around, the boom and bust cycles of the Marland estate, the fantastical imagery of the Wizard of Oz, and I guess we should add to the list even a stint in the Korean War,
Oh, yeah.
which, from what I've read, wasn't exactly part of the plan.
No, the Korean War story, it's classic Camblin. Classic Camblin. Okay, so picture this. So he and his high school buddy Forrest Harrisberger, they joined the Air Force Reserve, but they're thinking it's a surefire way to avoid active duty. They just wanted the perks.
So bored.
Yeah, but fate had other plans.
Uh-oh.
Korean War breaks out,
Oh, no.
and their plan backfired spectacularly.
Wow. Talk about a curveball. It makes you wonder how that experience, that sudden immersion in a completely different world might have shaped his outlook on, I don't know, everything.
Yeah, well, I've read that Camblin was already a voracious reader, even before the war. Like, he was always absorbing information, always reading something, even during class
Wow.
at the Kansas City Art Institute.
Yeah.
That's where he and Harrisberger reconnected, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
So even amidst the chaos of war, he was still seeking knowledge, still feeding that intellectual curiosity. I'm curious, though, what kind of stuff was he reading?
Oh, everything. I mean, philosophy, mythology, psychology, you name it. Authors like Freud, De Chirico, Matthias Grunewald. I think you can even see echoes of those writers and thinkers in his art later on.
Huh.
It's like he was constantly trying to make sense of the world, to find the connections between all these seemingly disparate ideas.
That makes sense considering his art is all about symbolism and hidden meanings.
Yeah.
It's not just what you see on the surface. There are always layers to uncover.
Right.
It seems like his reading was almost like a way of building up that mental library of symbols and archetypes that he would later draw upon in his work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can't forget about the impact of his Fulbright year in Italy in the 1950s. That was a major turning point for him,
Huge.
both personally and artistically.
Italy in the 50s, for an artist like Camblin, that must have been an incredible experience.
Oh, for sure.
What were some of the key takeaways for him from that period?
Well, he was obviously captivated by the masters in the Uffizi Gallery, just
Mm.
soaking up the techniques and styles of all the Renaissance greats.
Right.
But but there was another side to Italy that really stuck with him. The macabre beauty of the Capuchin catacombs in Palermo.
Yeah.
So imagine this: these
Ah.
underground tunnels lined with like thousands of skeletons, all meticulously arranged.
Oh, wow. That sounds both fascinating and a little creepy.
It is.
Not exactly your typical tourist destination.
No, not at all.
Do you think those catacombs, that stark reminder of mortality, had a lasting impact on his art?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Gamblin would later even refer to recurring figures in his work as mummies,
Hmm.
almost like they're echoes of those preserved bodies in the catacombs.
Huh.
Yeah, and it suggests that those images, that tension between beauty and decay, it stayed with him long after he left Italy.
So interesting. It's interesting how all these seemingly unrelated experiences, the grandeur of Renaissance art, the stark reality of war, the macabre beauty of those catacombs, all seem to like coalesce into something unique in Camplin's work.
It's like he was able to synthesize all those disparate influences and create something wholly original. Like he wasn't afraid to explore the light and shadow, the beautiful and the grotesque.
Right.
And that duality it's essential to understanding his whole artistic vision.
I love that. So we've got this artist who's absorbing influences from everywhere, from high art to popular culture to the darker side of history.
Yeah.
But how did that actually translate into his own artistic style? Like where did he go from there?
Well, after Italy, he came back to the U.S. and he actually found success teaching.
Oh, cool.
But something wasn't quite right. He felt stifled, like he was, I don't know, playing it safe.
That makes sense. I mean, after all those experiences, after immersing himself in the work of masters and confronting the realities of war and mortality, I mean, going back to the classroom might have felt a bit limiting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He had this vision, and he needed the freedom to explore it. He even said that he wanted to move beyond simply creating myths and embrace a more selfish artistic exploration.
That's a powerful statement.
It is.
It's like he was saying, I've paid my dues, I've learned from the best, and now I need to forge my own path.
And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
That desire for artistic freedom led him to Houston in 1969.
Oh, Houston in the late 60s. Talk about a vibrant art scene.
Oh yeah.
What drew him to that particular city?
Well, Houston definitely had a receptive art community.
Yeah.
But Camblin, he wasn't interested in fitting into any sort of established mold.
Right.
He had his own ideas about what art should be, how it should be made and experienced.
Like what? Give us a taste of Camblin's unconventional views.
Okay, so he once said that his ideal exhibition would involve artists working in the gallery space for like a whole month, blurring the lines between the creative process and the finished product.
Hmm. That's a pretty radical concept, even by today's standards.
It is
It's like he was anticipating the whole relational aesthetics movement decades before it became a thing.
exactly. He was ahead of his time in many ways.
Right.
And don't forget, he also had this deep distrust of uh, art for money. He often refused payment for his work.
Really?
Oh yeah, which only reinforced his outsider status.
Right. So it sounds like he was rejecting the traditional art market altogether, choosing to operate outside of that system. It seems like he was more interested in the integrity of his own creative process than in, I don't know, achieving commercial success or something.
I think that's a great point. It's like he was saying, my art is not a commodity. It's an expression of my ideas and experiences.
Right.
And that commitment to artistic integrity is evident in everything he did.
Yeah, I see that. So we've got this artist who's rebellious, intellectually curious, and deeply suspicious of the art market.
Right.
He arrives in Houston in 1969, ready to like shake things up. What happens next? How does this all play out in his work?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. He forms a collective called the Holding Firm with Earl Staley and Joe Tate.
The Holding Firm. That's an interesting name for an artist collective. What was their mission?
It was more than just a shared studio. It was a collaborative experiment, a way of like challenging the norms of the art world from within. They even organized events rather than exhibitions,
Yeah.
blurring the lines between art and life.
It sounds like they were creating their own rules, their own ecosystem within the larger art world. What kind of work were they producing? What was their aesthetic?
I read their studio space was legendary. It was a DIY construction without permits, complete with a tower that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. It was a chaotic blend of art and life, a reflection of their belief that creativity shouldn't be confined to a gallery or a museum.
Yeah, it's like they were living their artistic philosophy, not just talking about it.
Right.
And this idea of collaboration, of blurring the lines between individual and collective creation, it seems to be a key theme in Camblin's work.
Absolutely. And that brings us to one of Camblin's most fascinating concepts, the ecology of art. He,
Mm,
he wrote about this idea extensively, suggesting that artists are like parts of an ecosystem.
okay.
So some might seem self-indulgent while others play a more supportive role, but each is essential to the overall balance.
So it's not just about individual artists striving for recognition. It's about the interconnectedness of the art world as a whole. It's about recognizing that even the most outsider artists play a role in the larger ecosystem.
Exactly. And that idea, the ecology of art, it's key to understanding Camblin's collaborative spirit, his distrust of the art market, and his unwavering pursuit of his own unique vision.
It's like his whole approach was about disrupting that traditional art world hierarchy, both in his work and in how he lived. It was all connected.
Absolutely. And that's what makes his drawings so captivating. They're not just pretty pictures, they're invitations to think differently, to see the world through his unique lens.
So how do we start to decode those drawings? What should we be looking for when we encounter a Camblin piece?
Well, that's what we'll dive into next. His style, it evolved over time, but there were certain elements that remained consistent, certain recurring motifs and techniques that offer clues to his artistic vision.
Okay, you've piqued our curiosity. We're ready to delve into the symbolism and the hidden meanings behind those drawings. Lead the way.
Okay, so the visual language of Camblin's drawings, one thing that's consistent throughout his work, even as his style evolved, is that it rewards, I'd say rewards close looking. It's never just what you see on the surface.
Oh, interesting. So it's like he's inviting us to play detective, to look for those, I don't know, hidden clues and those layers of meaning.
Right, exactly.
But where do we even begin with something like that?
Well, first, it's helpful to understand how his style shifted over time. In his early work, there's a focus on social protest, imagery drawn from the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War.
Oh, wow.
But later, his work, it becomes more cryptic, more focused on symbolism and personal mythology.
It's like he's moving from the explicitly political to something more internal, more focused on exploring the human condition or something.
Yeah, exactly. And as his work becomes more symbolic, certain motifs start to appear again and again. You get scarecrows, gloves, machined objects, larva shells, all these images that hint at transformation and cycles.
Those recurring motifs are interesting. Take the scarecrows, for example. What do you think Camblin was trying to convey with that particular image?
Scarecrows are fascinating, aren't they? They're meant to ward off threats, but they're also inherently vulnerable, exposed to the elements.
Right.
They're a symbol of protection, but also fragility. I think Camblin was drawn to that duality. He saw the human condition as similarly paradoxical, strong and vulnerable, capable of great things, but also susceptible to forces beyond our control.
Yeah, I see that. And what about the larva shells? They seem to be a recurring image in his work, especially in those later pieces.
Yeah, larva shells are all about metamorphosis, about
Mm.
shedding old forms and becoming something new. I think for Camlin, they represented the potential for transformation, both personal and societal. He saw life as a constant process of change, of growth and decay, and the larva shell was a perfect visual metaphor for that cycle.
So it's like he's saying that nothing stays the same, that we're all in a constant state of flux. And the larva shell is a reminder that even in decay, there's the potential for new life, for something beautiful to emerge from the ashes.
Exactly, and I think that idea, that hopefulness amidst the inevitability of change, it's a recurring theme throughout all of Camlin's work.
So we've got these recurring motifs, this interplay of symbolism and personal mythology, and this underlying fascination with transformation. But there's another element in Camlin's drawings that we haven't talked about yet: text.
Right.
He often incorporates words and phrases into his pieces, but it's not always clear what they mean.
Yeah, that's right. The use of text in Camlin's work is fascinating. It's never straightforward. It's always a bit of a puzzle. Sometimes the words, they seem to provide a clue to the meaning of the image,
Right.
but other times they lead you down a rabbit hole, making you question everything you thought you understood.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. It's like he's playing a game with the viewer, challenging us to decipher his code. And And just when you think you've cracked it, you realize there's another layer, another twist.
Exactly. He even called these textual puzzles data problems.
Yeah.
There were like little glitches in the system, moments where the logic of the image breaks down and you're forced to rethink your assumptions.
A data problem. I like that.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of a data problem in one of his drawings? I'm having trouble picturing what that might actually look like.
Sure. There's a drawing called the Mechanic's Dilemma. That's a great example. It depicts a figure, presumably a mechanic, surrounded by all these tools and machine parts. But one of the tools, a wrench, is labeled banana.
A banana wrench. That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. It's a data problem. It's a deliberate error, a nonsensical element that disrupts the logic of the image. And it forces you to ask, why is that wrench labeled banana? What is Camblin trying to tell me?
Yeah, it's like he's saying, don't take things at face value. Look deeper. Question everything.
Precisely. He's not interested in spoon-feeding you the meaning.
Yeah.
He wants you to work for it, to engage with the work on an intellectual and emotional level.
So the text in his drawings is both a clue and a trap.
It is.
It can offer insights, but it can also lead you astray.
Right.
It's like he's testing our ability to discern truth from illusion, to navigate the complexities of meaning.
I think that's a great way to put it. And you know, this idea of text as a trap, it actually connects to a broader theme in Camblin's work, his response to what he saw as the over-reliance on language in the art world. He was particularly critical of Tom Wolfe's book, The Painted Word, which argued that modern art had become too dependent on verbal explanations.
So instead of rejecting language altogether, he decided to subvert it, to turn it into a tool for disruption.
Exactly. He's essentially saying, fine, you want words, I'll give you words, but don't expect them to make things any easier. In fact, they might just make things more complicated.
It's a brilliant strategy, really. He's taking the very thing that he's critiquing, the reliance on language to explain art, and he's turning it into a weapon, a way of challenging the viewer's expectations and forcing them to think more critically.
And I think that's one of the things that makes Camblin's work so enduringly relevant. You know, we live in a world that's saturated with information where we're constantly bombarded with all these messages and interpretations.
Right.
And Camblin's art, it reminds us to be skeptical, to question what we're told, and to look for those hidden layers of meaning.
Yeah. So we've talked about the recurring motifs, the use of text as both clue and a trap, and this underlying theme of transformation. But how does all of this come together in a specific piece? I'm thinking specifically about the painting that's featured in that YouTube video that we mentioned earlier. They have internet in Tir na Nog. It sounds like a fascinating piece, full of those classic Camblin paradoxes.
Oh, it absolutely is. They have internet in Tir na Nog is like a microcosm of Camblin's entire artistic philosophy. It's got the cryptic imagery, the playful humor, the layers of meaning that invite us to dive deeper.
Right.
And the title itself, it's a perfect example of Camblin's ability to juxtapose these seemingly contradictory ideas.
Okay, so before we dive into the painting itself, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is Tir na Nog, and what's so paradoxical about having internet access there?
Good point. Okay, so Tir na Nog is this mythical land in Irish folklore. It's often described as a place of eternal youth and beauty, a realm where time stands still and sorrow is unknown.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, it's a classic paradise myth, a place of escape and transcendence.
So it's the ultimate unplugged destination, a place where you go to get away from it all, to disconnect from the modern world and reconnect with something timeless.
Exactly, and that's what makes the title of the painting so intriguing. By adding the phrase "they have internet" in Tir na Nog, Camblin is introducing a modern element into this ancient myth.
Right.
It's like he's asking, what happens when the digital age infiltrates paradise? Can we truly escape in a world that's constantly connected?
That's such a clever juxtaposition. It immediately sets up this tension between the timeless and the temporal, between the desire for escape and the reality of our interconnected world.
Yeah.
I'm already hooked.
Me too. And the painting itself it's just as captivating as the title. The video does a great job of breaking down the imagery and exploring those deeper layers of meaning. Yeah. You ready to take a closer look?
Absolutely. Lead the way. So we've got this mythical land of eternal youth, Tir na Nog, but with Wi-Fi. What does the painting actually look like?
All right, so imagine a fantastical landscape, very dramatic, with cliffs and waterways.
Okay.
And a river kind of meanders from the foreground into the distance and then eventually flows through this glowing square portal
Oh, wow.
carved into this massive cliff face.
Portal. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a waterfall of light, beckoning you into this other realm.
That's so cool. And what's even more intriguing is what's nestled right in the middle of this otherworldly setting.
Yeah.
It's not a castle or a magical tree or something. It's a small artist's studio,
Right.
complete with a red roof and a tower and this windmill-like structure, almost like a symbol of the everyday amidst the extraordinary.
Exactly. It's that juxtaposition that makes the painting so compelling. You have this ancient myth of paradise, this timeless realm of escape, and then Camblin inserts this very modern, very grounded element, the artist's studio.
Yeah, it's like he's saying that even in a place of eternal youth, creativity still exists, that the human impulse to create it transcends time and space.
Right. And remember, this studio, it has internet access.
Oh, right, right.
So it's not just about the presence of the artist, it's about the connection to the wider world, that inability to completely escape the flow of information and technology, even in a mythical paradise.
This is where it gets really interesting for me because, we talked about how Camblin was fascinated by liminal spaces, those thresholds between worlds.
Yeah.
Could it be that he saw the internet and by extension the artist's studio as a kind of modern day portal?
That's a great insight. The glowing square portal in the distance,
Yeah.
the gateway to Tir no Nog, that could be seen as a more traditional mythical
All
portal.
right.
But the studio, with this internet connection, it represents a different kind of portal,
Yeah.
one that allows us to traverse time and space through information and technology.
So we have these two portals, one ancient and mythical, the other modern and technological.
Right.
And they both lead to the same place, a realm of escape, a place where the ordinary rules of time and space don't apply.
And it's not just the portals that are interesting.
Yeah.
Camlin has also included some intriguing figures in the painting. On the left, you have the three graces from Antonio Canova's famous sculpture.
Oh, okay.
They embody beauty, charm, and fertility, classic symbols of paradise.
Right.
But on the right, near the exit, there's a skull lurking in the shadows.
Classic Camblin duality, right?
Hmm.
Beauty and decay, life and death, all intertwined. Even in paradise, there's a reminder of our mortality, of the cyclical nature of existence.
Exactly. And then you have these horses on the cliffs above the river,
Yeah.
almost like they're watching over the scene, witnesses to this strange interplay of myth and technology.
It's almost like they represent those primal instincts, those wild impulses that can't be tamed even in a place of supposed perfection.
And don't forget the title. They have internet in Tir no Nog.
Right.
Who is they? Is it the inhabitants of this mythical realm, or is it us, the viewers, projecting our own modern anxieties onto this timeless landscape?
Camlin is so good at raising those questions without providing easy answers.
He is.
He makes you think, he makes you question your assumptions, and he invites you to bring your own interpretations to the work, which I really like.
The video also points out an intriguing connection to the I Ching, an ancient Chinese text that Camblin was known to consult. The imagery in the painting, it actually aligns with hexagram 24, returning.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't familiar with the I Ching, what's the significance of that connection?
So hexagram 24, it emphasizes cycles, renewal, coming back, changed. It suggests that there's a natural rhythm to life, a process of going out into the world, experiencing things, and then returning to your starting point, but transformed by the journey.
So it's not just about escaping to paradise. It's about what you bring back with you, how you integrate those experiences into your everyday life.
Exactly. And in the context of this painting, it suggests that even if you could escape to Tir na Nog, even if you could find this mythical place of eternal youth, you would eventually have to return to the real world, changed by your experience, but still bound by the same cycles of life and death, creation and decay.
It's almost like a cautionary tale. Be careful what you wish for, because even paradise has its limits.
And maybe that's the ultimate message of the painting, that true transformation doesn't come from escaping reality, but from confronting it, from engaging with the complexities of the world around us.
So what does all of this mean for us, the viewers? How do we apply these ideas to our own lives?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Camlin's work is a reminder that art is about more than just aesthetics. It's about ideas. It's about provoking thought. It's about challenging our perceptions.
And it's about finding those connections, those threads of meaning that weave through our lives. Just like Camblin blended influences and styles, we can find inspiration in unexpected places, in the everyday and the extraordinary.
His work is a call to be more aware, more curious, more willing to look beyond the surface of things.
And to embrace those paradoxes, those contradictions that make life so interesting.
Exactly. To find beauty in the unexpected, to see the potential for transformation even in the midst of decay.
So the next time you encounter a work of art, whether it's a painting, a sculpture, a poem, a song, whatever, ask yourself what traps are hidden here, what illusions are at play, and how might this experience actually transform me?
Because as Bob Camblin reminds us, the journey is just as important as the destination. And sometimes the most profound transformations happen when we're willing to get lost in the process.
That's a great note to end on. Well, I want to thank you for taking this deep dive with me into the world of Bob Camblin. I learned a lot today, and I hope our listeners did too.
Me too. It was my pleasure.